So tonight I thought I'd talk a little bit about building resilience. It sort of like moves on nicely from last week's talk. I don't know if anyone was here last week. We talked about how 5 ways to cope with change. So I think we'll be putting that one up on Facebook anyway, yeah? Sometime soon, hopefully. So just look out for that one, 5 ways to cope with change. There's just so much happening in the world. It's sometimes I scroll through the news and it's like the world's going mad. It's getting crazier and crazier, just like it's all just doom and gloom. But there's so many positives that can be found. So you're building resilience, overcoming and growing from setbacks. So has anybody heard of Thomas Edison? He was a very famous inventor. He invented the light globe or the bulb. What would we do without bulbs? How many bulbs in this centre? Just this centre alone. Lights everywhere. And he said once, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That's a pretty positive way of looking at it, isn't it? So do we have the resilience to overcome our challenges, or do we let our failures derail our goals? Have a think about that. And what could we accomplish if we had the strength not to give up? So I thought I'd read out a couple of the meanings that I came up with, I found on the meaning of resilience. The capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. An ability to recover from or adjust easily to misfortune or change. And another one here, the ability to recover readily from illness, depression, adversity, or the like. And the last one here that I found, the ability to overcome stress and adversity. So there are a few key points that I noted down I'd like to talk on, because we all need resilience in this crazy world. As the world gets crazier, we need more and more resilience. And Ida Buttrose was just saying that the people are getting less and less resilient. She's finding that especially the younger generation, they tend to be lacking in this field a little bit. I suppose they've always had a pretty easy life, so they haven't had terribly big challenges to face. And now they're facing this huge world crisis, and they're not coping really well with it. Whereas some of the older people have already had challenges in their lives. Like my parents, they were, in the World War, so they had the Great Depression, and, they went through quite a lot. But even in my lifetime, it's been pretty cruisy up until now. There's not really much that's happened in my life as far as, a big crisis like what's happening at the moment. And so resilience is a really, really important thing. Everybody wants to bounce back because, the word comes from, resistance bands, bouncing back. Bouncing back. We all want to bounce back from these problems in life and overcome stress and adversity. I think everybody wants that, more of that in their life, to be able to cope with things easier. And the first thing we need to understand is it too shall pass. Everything here in this world is temporary. Our bodies are temporary. They give us trouble. Our minds are temporary. The mind gives us trouble. All our problems are temporary. They give us trouble. Everything is going to pass. The only thing that's not going to change is you. You are an eternal living being, an eternal spirit soul, and you don't change. You're eternally the same. And this is why it goes against the grain when we, come up against change. We don't like it because it's not our nature to be, in this sea of change, constantly changing. It's like we're always trying to find that steady platform. And, we can't find it because everything's always changing. We just get used to one thing and then it changes again. And it's like the Victorians, they got used to, they were coming out of, the restrictions were being lifted and suddenly they're back in again. Now they're all rebelling, they don't like it, they're not coping well with it. You know, if everyone just settled down and did what they were told, you know, they probably have a better, you know, way of controlling it. But people don't like change. They're fighting against it. So we have to get used to the fact that change is going to be there and it is going to pass. We'll look back one day and go, oh, remember that pandemic? It's gone, you know. Everything comes and everything goes. They've had many world pandemics and world crises through the ages, and they're in the history books. They've gone, they're long gone. So we have to realise that no matter what our problem is that we're facing, it is going to pass. You know, sometimes you feel like it's never going to end, but just have patience. This is where patience comes in. Have some patience and realise that it's also going to pass. So a resilient person sees difficulties as a challenge, a time for improvement, not a paralysing event. So you can see, you know, positives in how you can make changes no matter what you're facing. So, you know, I found here I come up with a lot of, you know, problems with people. We've got hundreds of volunteers over the years that have come to help, and you're dealing with different personalities, and you know, different people have different ways of doing things, and there are always trips, you know. It's just dealing with humans, isn't it? We've all got trips. And you know, I always try not to put the blame on the other person, full blame, you know, it takes two to tango, but you know, take it on board and go, well, how can I improve and deal with this situation better next time? You know, you can always be reflective and see how I can make changes so that when I come up against this challenge or a similar challenge next time, I can make those internal changes and make it so that it's not such a big challenge. The challenge is easier and less of a problem for both parties, or all the parties concerned, you know. And another thing is forgiveness. It's a really, really important thing in building resilience, is learning to forgive. Realising that we're all human, no one's perfect in this world. We're all going to make mistakes. I make mistakes, others make mistakes. You know, they're not perfect, I'm not perfect. And seeing your own faults and not trying to, you know, not see the faults of others. So this is a really hard one, because, you know, if you were to write down, if I was to give you a piece of paper and you wrote down, say, your partner or, you know, someone you're close to, write down all their faults, your list would be long. And then if you had you know, another piece of paper, you wrote down your own faults, I guarantee you that list would be shorter. You know, we don't like to look at our faults, yet we have a tendency to look for faults in others. And Jesus said, you know, why are you looking at the splinter in the other person's eye when you've got a log in your own? So, you know, when you come up with especially relationship challenges, it's a good time to go within and reflect and make those changes yourself. You know, as we said last week, it's really important to realise that, you know, to realise what we can't change and what we can't control, and let go of that. So we're not going to be able to change another person, but we can make changes ourselves. And how we react as well to things, you know. How did I react to that situation? No, I think I could have done a lot better than I did. So next time when I face a challenge, I think about it more and I deal with it differently. So really important to make those inner changes yourself and direct those criticisms and fault-finding tendencies towards yourself rather than others. So yeah, see it as the difficulty as a challenge. Like, you know, how's this going to challenge me? How can I improve? Rather than seeing it as a paralysing event, because it's going to pass. It shouldn't paralyse you. It just should be something you see as a logical thing, something that can I make any changes here? Can I do anything about this? If there's nothing you can do, you're going to have to just let it go and just move on. So accepting change, we live in a sea of change, and the only permanent thing is you, the soul, and these mantras. They're the only permanent things in this world. So we can find the permanence that we're searching for in these mantras. These mantras are eternal sound, and they are food for the eternal soul. They're eternal food for the eternal soul. So there's permanence there. So whenever you're feeling that ground you're on is shaky, I'm not doing so well here, take time out and go within and practice your meditation. It's such an important thing. It will get you through the most difficult times in your life. I remember once I went through, to me it was a really, really difficult time. We actually were in a different centre down at Kurilpa Street, and we wanted to move into a bigger place after the floods, and so we signed a pre-lease agreement. I wouldn't advise you to do that. They don't stand a chance in court or anything. You've got nothing to go by. But we signed it anyway, not knowing, and so then the guy that I was renting from, he got it in for us. He wanted us out like now, and we had nowhere to go, and he took me to court. And I remember going to court, and I was shaking. My voice was like, I'd never been to court before, and my voice was like, oh, yes. And I was like shaking, and I had my beads in my hand. KC came with me just for support, and she gave me my beads. She said, here, hold your beads. And I was hanging on for grim death to these beads, and just chanting. And, this went on for 6 months. There was just one problem after another. And then the other guys said no, that we couldn't move in. So they took us to court, and we ended up with nowhere to go. We had no centre. And yeah, it was 6 months just dealing with these people that were really, like, they were hardcore businessmen. I wasn't that way inclined. I was just trying to run a yoga and meditation centre, and I was dealing with these men that were just after money, And it was such a difficult period. I felt like it was never going to end, But I would come along and I would teach my classes, and I'd come along to the chanting. I'd come in and I'd just feel so gnarly and upset, and I'd walk out and it was like, it's gone. So I kept doing that for the whole 6 months, and then it finally went. We got a nice centre down the road, and we were there for 7 years, and it all turned out fine. My dad always used to say to me, 99.9% of what you worry about doesn't even happen. He was right. When you think about it, you worry about these things that are never going to happen. So wait till it happens before you start worrying about it. But yeah, this 6 months, I would have to say it was one of the most difficult periods in my life, and what got me through unscathed was the meditation, just constantly doing the meditation. And sometimes I really didn't feel like teaching my class. I felt like getting a teacher to cover for me, and I went, no, I've got to do this. I'd come in, and every time I walk out and feel like the burden had been lifted. Gradually it was to come back, another couple of phone calls later. But I just got a relief from it, constant relief. So it was enough to sort of just keep me going through this really difficult patch until finally the burden lifted and it didn't come back again. Came back in another form. There's always something. But and I think I learnt a lot from that. There was so many challenges in that 6 months, and I learnt a lot, and I think I built more resilience, and I became a much stronger person. So when I look back, I'm not sorry it happened. It did make me much stronger, just having to deal with that whole scene for 6 months. So we can sort of look on the positive side of things. There's always something to be grateful for. So that's probably the next point. We tend to be looking at all the problems in our lives and what we don't have, and we neglect to be grateful for what we do have, grateful and appreciate what we do have. And that's a really important thing. It's actually scientifically proven that somebody who shows a lot of gratitude and is very grateful and appreciative of things that they do have are much happier, stronger people. So gratitude's a really important quality in spiritual life, you know. But so you can be grateful. You can go, okay, there's a pandemic out there. It hasn't really affected me much. We went through the whole thing, you know, with this shutdown and everything. But you know, I'm just so grateful. I've got something to hang on to. You know, I've got the meditation. I've got the spiritual wisdom. I know that I'm a spirit soul, and these bodies are temporary, and everything else is temporary around me. And because I have this strong, you know, it's very strong in my life, this wisdom and this meditation practice, that I do have a steady platform. Even when the world's going crazy around me, I have a steady platform. So to me, I felt like nothing much changed for me. There's a whole tsunami going on out there, but you know, I still have my steady platform, and I'm standing on that nice steady platform, no matter how many changes are going on. So showing gratitude is a really, really important thing. Knowledge is really important. Make sure you get the facts right. Be discriminative. You know, we often listen to things which cause overload, and it leads to overwhelm. You know, sometimes I've read those news articles because I have to keep up with what's going on, because the government actually don't tell you when the restrictions lift. You've got to find out for yourself. You've got to go to the website and, you know, or the news. And, you know, some of those news media articles, they sound like doom and gloom. And when you actually read them, they say, you know, okay, the restrictions are being lifted, but this could happen. They're just feeding people fear. You know, a lot of the articles were like that. They were just feeding fear into the community, and they weren't even based on any truth. It was just, this could happen, that could happen. Why think about what could happen? Wait till it happens before you worry about it. You know, I mean, half the time we just worry about things that could potentially happen. And that's just going to make people more fearful and less resilient. So, you know, the knowledge, we're given the knowledge, the spiritual guidance through the Vedas and through our spiritual teachers in our disciplic succession, you know, how to get through these difficult times. You know, your meditation. It's the most important thing you can do in your life. It will get you through life no matter how tough it gets. And this strength comes from within, knowing who I am, that I'm actually an eternal being, temporarily residing in this material body and mind, and that, you know, none of this actually touches me. None of these problems that are coming up in life are actually touching me. I'm totally, you know, untouched by any of it. It's having an effect on my body and mind, but it's not actually touching me. So this builds such strong strength from within, just having this spiritual knowledge. It's quite amazing how it can make you so strong from within. It's also really important to have a support base. So, you know, being with positively spiritually minded people is really nice. They are heading in the same direction, they have the same knowledge, and you know, you're not out there with people who are saying, oh, you know, this is terrible, that's terrible, this is terrible, oh, what am I going to do now? They're steady in their meditation and their understanding and this knowledge, and they're living by this knowledge. So having association is a really important thing, having that support. And this is one of the main reasons we have so many programs here, so that people have support. They have other people in the spiritual community that are heading in a similar direction. And, you know, we're here to support each other. You know, if you've got that sort of support, it can really make a huge difference to your life. You know, so I'm always really, really grateful that I have so many friends who are spiritually inclined, and, you know, if I'm heading down the wrong path, they're there to sort of help me pick you up and go, look, you know, I think you're heading in the wrong direction here, get back on track, you know, and they can help you along. So we sort of help each other, because we're all, you know, falling off the path sometimes, and at some time, one time or another, you know, and we can help each other get back on track. So having that support base is really good. Having like-minded, association is really, really important. So probably the last one is having strong goals and plans to achieve those goals. So, we're taught here that there's got to be a different goal to, if you are understanding aham brahmasmi, I'm spirit, not matter, I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I am the eternal spirit soul, the eternal spark of the supreme soul, then your goals are going to be different. Because, okay, I'm a spirit soul, so what now? What are my goals? Your actual goal is to connect up with the Supreme Being in a relationship of love. And that is your true nature. And that is my goal in life. I've set that goal and I'm trying to do everything I can to move towards that goal. So setbacks come along, that 6 months I had, I felt like that was a bit of a setback because it took my mind off what I was, used to doing. But one thing I did do, I always practiced my meditation every single morning. Without fail, I've done that for 28 years. Without fail, I've practiced my japa meditation and some kirtan every morning. And So yeah, having that strong goal, we have to have a goal, and then we work towards that goal. So otherwise we're just floundering in life. So it's one thing we really need to go away and think about. What are my goals in life and what am I wanting to achieve? A lot of people go through life without even giving it a thought. They just go through life. And if we want to get out of this material realm where there is no change, where there is, no stress and worry and anxiety, if we want to go back to that spiritual realm where we belong, where there is no pain and suffering, then we need to have that as our goal and work towards that goal. We need to have a strong plan that we're going to be following in order to achieve that goal. So, remember if you're getting a bit derailed at times, just remember that, yes, that's right, that's my goal. And I've, gone off track a little bit, but you can always get back on. It's not like it's forever. People go off in the wrong direction sometimes and they back on track again, and then further up they're off again, going on a little bit off the track and back on. So it's not like our path to the spiritual realm is like straight. It's like, but as long as it's heading in the right direction, we keep getting back on track. And that's what I found. That's actually the secret to it. Keep getting back. You will go off. And don't put so much emphasis on all your mistakes. Just go, okay, I made a mistake there. I can get back on. It's always there. That path is always there. It's not going to go away. It's just you need to come back and get back onto that track. So it's a constant thing. All the way through life, you're going to be constantly, got to get back on track, got to get back on track. But the secret is if you keep doing it, you will get there. Yeah, it's like if you're going through the jungle, you want to get to the other side of the jungle and there's one track and you keep going off and you try different things along the way. But if you keep getting back onto that track will eventually take you to the other side of the jungle and you will arrive there safely in the end. You just got to keep getting back onto that track. So there's a few tips on how to build resilience, and it's something we really need to work on. And in order to get through life and in a nicer, easier way. If we've got more resilience, you'll find that life is easier, much easier. So did anybody have any questions? Yes, Yolani.
Thank you, Gayatri. It's just in reference to, I think it was point 3, after the gratitude, it was to learn to be discriminative. Could you give me a definition of what that means? Because I'm just not sure on the word. I don't know.
Yeah, you need to discriminate.
Can
What was it referring to here? It was what we listen to, yes. So you need to discriminate between what is going to help you and what is not.
Right, thank you.
So reading all these news articles that is going to cause fear is not going to help you. They're not things that we can do anything about anyway. Even if we read that, you know, okay, it's getting worse by the minute, we can't do anything. So we have to be discriminative. Why spend time reading too much? We've become corona conscious. Yeah, so just go, that's not going to help you at all by reading all these different articles. I mean, some people are on there, you know, hours every day just reading about the pandemic, and that's not going to help you achieve your goal. So be discriminative. Is it going to help you achieve the goal that you want?
Necessary.
And if it won't, change what you're reading. So instead of reading the news stories, maybe read some Bhagavad Gita or read the Bhagavatams or something. You know, there's so many wonderful spiritual books out there that are going to help you achieve your goal. So we need to discriminate and go, is this going to help me on my path or is it not? Is it going to take me off track? I mean, there's so much stuff out there to read, and that's why we have to discriminate. Is this going to help me achieve my goal? Yeah. Anyone else? All right. Well, we'll practice some more kirtan. Thank you very much. Namaste.